Nehawu has called on the National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, to give orders to nullify a contract awarded to former Parliament Secretary Gengezi Mgidlana. Mgidlana's company, Afrocentric Markets Consultancy, was appointed to conduct research for Parliament. The union believes the appointment of Mgidlana's company to do business with Parliament was irregular and unethical. He was fired over allegations of maladministration back in 2018. We're joined now by Nehawu Secretary in Parliament, Temba Gubula. Temba, good evening. Thanks for your time. Any answers for why Mr. Mgidlana would have been considered in the first place to do work with Parliament, given the circumstances under which he was fired?
Good evening, Kathy, and good evening to your viewers. It's still mind-boggling to us as the union that Parliament would act in the manner it has done. You fire someone in Gengezi Mgidlana for maladministration or financial mismanagement as the CEO of Parliament, and yet you are saying it's good enough to be your service provider. You appoint that person to be a service provider. So to us, that defies all logic. We find it very counterintuitive, and there's no explanation that anyone can bring to the fore to convince us otherwise as to why such a decision was taken. So that's why we are saying, therefore, that the contract that his company has been awarded should actually be declared null and void, and this whole thing be scrapped because it doesn't make sense to us.
Do we know if due process was followed in the awarding of this contract initially?
Look, this is where we are sort of disadvantaged as the union, because it appears that all these things were done underhandedly. And we have written to the Secretary to Parliament to say, Mr. George, to say, can he provide us with all the information pertaining to this process? The decision first, why was there such a need for such a service? Whether there was an advert, when was the advert issued out? How many companies submitted their bids? How was the committee formulated, who sat there? All the information that has to do with this whole process of arriving at a decision to appoint Mr. Mgidlana's company. We want that information as the union, because we've got reasonable apprehension that indeed this was done in an underhanded way.
Have you received any word back yet in terms of the request that you've put on the table?
No, to be fair to Mr. George, we only submitted our request to him very late. So we want to give him space to get all the information, and we trust that he will then give the union that information. You would understand, Kate, that also from the emails we saw, Mr. George himself, having just started in Parliament, he was not involved in the decision to appoint Mr. Mgidlana's company. So this process appears to have been done prior to Mr. George's arrival. So he himself may be disadvantaged in terms of the information regarding this decision, because we did see emails that are seeking a meeting with him to apprise him of this particular decision.
And do you know, Temba, if the company had already started doing work with Parliament?
No, the only thing we know, Kathy, is that we've seen an email from Mr. Mgidlana to Mr. George, in which he asks Mr. George that he first informs him that his company has been appointed to do this work, and that he would require full cooperation from him in terms of submitting the required information and documents. So that's how far we know in respect of the work this company has to do. We don't know if they've actually done work. But what we know for certain is that this company has been appointed. There's a letter to that effect, appointment letter, as well as the email from Mgidlana himself writing to Mr. George that his company has been given this contract.
All right.
So that's why we are saying Parliament has to act with speed and scrap this contract. It really defies all logic. It's unethical, and in our view, it's irrational. Mr. Mgidlana may very well use a lacuna that in his dismissal letter, there's nothing that prohibits him from doing business with Parliament. But ethically, you can't be dismissed for financial mismanagement and go and provide a service to the same organization that dismissed you for financial mismanagement. It just is just mind-boggling and, in our view, irregular and unethical.
Absolutely. Nehawu Secretary in Parliament, Temba Gubula, will certainly find out what happens then with that particular story. Thanks for your time tonight.